1904. A rail depot in the mountains of western North Carolina. A man steps down off the train with a rifle case in one hand and a typewriter in the other. He is 42 years old. His name is Horace Kephart. 3 months earlier, he was the chief librarian of the St. Louis Mercantile Library. He wore a pressed suit to work. He had a wife and 6 children. He has none of that now. There was a collapse. There was drinking. The marriage ended. So he has come to the Smoky Mountains to disappear. He walks up a creek called Hazel Creek and moves into an abandoned cabin. There are no neighbors for miles. There is no help coming. And he begins to write down everything he learns. Every fire. Every knot. Every mistake. 2 years later, those notes become a book. It is called Camping and Woodcraft. It teaches an entire generation of American men how to stay alive outdoors. Your grandfather may have owned a copy. You have probably never opened one. These are 15 of the skills inside it. Skills that kept American families alive in the woods for 2 centuries. Almost nobody can do them now. Number 11 is the one most men get exactly backwards. It is the reason they walk in circles and die within a mile of a road. Number 7 has almost nothing to do with fire. And number 13 is the difference between a man who is camping and a man who is surviving. Subscribe before we start. Number 15, reading the sky before it turns. Kephart had no forecast and no radio. He read the weather the way you read a clock. A ring around the moon meant rain within a day. That ring is ice crystals high in the atmosphere, riding ahead of a warm front. Campfire smoke that dropped low and swirled meant falling pressure. Smoke that rose straight and clean meant the weather would hold. Red sky at morning was not a rhyme. It was a warning that wet air was moving in. Men on the trail made camp or broke camp on those signs alone. A man who misread the sky could be caught in the open when the storm came. Number 14. Choosing the ground you sleep on. Most men pick a campsite for the view. The old woodsman picked it for the ways it could kill them. Cold air sinks. A camp in the bottom of a hollow will be far colder than a camp on the bench above it, so they camped on the shelf of ground partway up the slope. They never slept directly under a dead limb. Woodsmen called them widowmakers, and they came down without a sound. They never camped on a sandbar in a narrow gorge. Rain miles upstream can put a wall of water through a gorge in minutes. The site was chosen before dark, every time. Number 13, the bed, not the shelter. This is the one that separates camping from surviving. The ground will take your heat faster than the wind ever will. A man can build a fine shelter, lie down on bare earth, and still freeze. So the first thing they built was the bed. Armfuls of evergreen boughs, laid butt down and shingled like roof tiles, a foot thick, sometimes more. Dry leaves, dry grass, bark, anything that trapped air underneath the body. Insulation beneath you is worth more than a blanket over you. Every experienced woodsman knew it. Almost every man who died of cold in the woods did not. Number 12. The debris hut. No tarp, no canvas, no rope, a long ridgepole, one end propped waist-high on a stump or a forked stick. Ribs of branches leaned against it on both sides, close together. Then leaves piled over the whole frame, not a few inches, 2 or 3 feet deep. The leaves are the blanket, and the air trapped inside them is the warmth. The space inside is deliberately tight, just big enough for a body, so the body can heat it. It looks like a pile of forest trash. It will hold a man through a night that would otherwise kill him. Number 11. The moss on the north side. Everyone has heard this one. Moss grows on the north side of the tree, so moss will guide you out. It is wrong and it is dangerous. Moss grows where it is damp and shaded. On a north slope, that can be any side of any tree. Near a creek, the wettest side is the side facing the water. Men have trusted the moss and walked a straight line into deeper wilderness. The old woodsmen did not navigate by moss. They navigated by the sun, by the water, and by the shape of the land. Water runs downhill, and downhill eventually runs to people. Number 10. The shadow stick. A straight stick, pushed upright into open ground. Mark the tip of its shadow with a pebble. Wait 15 or 20 minutes. Mark the new tip of the shadow with a second pebble. Draw a line between the two marks. That line runs roughly west to east. The first mark is always the west end. No compass, no sun watching, no guessing. It works anywhere the sun is out. Number 9. The axe was the real tool, not the knife. The axe. A man with an axe can build shelter, make fire, and cut his way out. The old woodsman carried a full-size axe, not a hatchet. A hatchet is more dangerous because it swings short and glances. They chopped with the whole body, not the arms. They never chopped toward their own leg. They kept the wood between the blade and the body. A cut to the shin, 40 miles from a doctor, was a death sentence. Number 8. Putting an edge on steel. A dull blade does not fail gently. It slips, it glances, and it cuts the man holding it. So they sharpened constantly. A flat stone, a little water or spit, and a steady angle. The same angle, every stroke, until a burr came up on the far side. Then they turned the blade and worked the burr off. They stropped it on a leather belt to finish. A sharp blade takes almost no force. It is the safest tool in the woods. Number 7. The fire lay. Here is the part almost nobody understands. Making fire has almost nothing to do with the spark. It has everything to do with what you prepared before you struck it. The old woodsmen grated their wood before they lit anything. Tinder first, dry, fine, and fluffed. Shredded inner bark, dead grass, birch bark, fat wood shavings. Then kindling, no thicker than a pencil. Then sticks the thickness of a thumb. Then split wood, and only then the logs. Wood standing dead, off the ground, is dry inside even in the rain. Wood lying on the forest floor is soaked through and worthless. A man who grades his wood can light a fire in a downpour. A man who does not will fail on a dry day. Number 6. Fire from friction with a hand drill. Not a bow drill, a hand drill. A straight, dry spindle about the length of your arm. A flat, soft, dry hearth board with a shallow socket cut into it. A notch cut into the socket so the hot dust has somewhere to fall. A scrap of bark below the notch to catch it. Then the palms spin the spindle and drive it down. Down the spindle, back to the top, again without stopping. Dark dust builds in the notch and begins to smoke. That ember is fragile. It is tipped into the tinder bundle and breathed into life. It is the hardest skill on this list. And once a man could do it, he was never truly without fire. Number 5. The fire that burns all night. A normal fire dies at 2 in the morning. The man wakes cold and has to build it again in the dark. So the woodsman built a long fire. 2 big logs, laid one on top of the other, the full length of the body. Green stakes driven into the ground to hold them in place. The fire burns slowly in the seam between them. A slab of bark or a wall of logs behind it throws the heat back. The heat pushes into the shelter, not up into the sky. The man sleeps, and the fire does not go out. Number 4. The Dakota fire hole. A fire built in a hole in the ground. 1 hole for the fire. A second, smaller hole, a foot away, angled to meet it underneath. That tunnel feeds air to the fire from below. The fire burns hotter, faster, and with almost no smoke. It uses far less wood. The flame is below ground, so the wind cannot reach it, and it cannot be seen from a distance. Trappers and hunters used it when they did not want to be found. When they moved on, they filled the holes in. The camp vanished. Number 3. Finding water where there is none. A dry creek bed is not empty. It is a road that water uses. Water hides on the outside of the bends, where the current cut deepest. Dig there. At the lowest point of the outside curve, a hole a foot or 2 down will often fill with water. It will be muddy. Let it settle. Animals will show you too. Birds fly toward water at dawn and at dusk. Bees rarely travel far from it. Green vegetation in dry country is standing over water, and all of it had to be boiled. Bad water killed more men on the trail than any animal. Number 2. Cordage out of the woods. Rope was expensive, heavy, and always running out, so they made it out of the forest. The inner bark of the basswood, the dogbane stalk, the tough roots of the spruce, the fibers were stripped, dried, then dampened again to make them supple. Then twisted. 2 bundles, each twisted hard in the same direction, then wrapped around each other the opposite way. The tension locks the cord together and it cannot unwind. That cord lashed the shelter, set the snare, and held the pack together. A man who could make cordage was never truly out of supplies. Number 1. Making the meat last. A man could kill a deer and still starve, because meat spoils in days, and a deer is more than a man can eat. So the kill was preserved the same day. Smoking. Thin strips over low heat and heavy smoke for many hours. The smoke dries the meat and keeps the flies off it. Salting, where salt could be had, which was rare and precious. And drying, in thin strips, in sun and wind. Dried right, it kept for months. It weighed almost nothing. It was the food that carried a man through a winter. Kephart wrote all of it down. He stayed in those mountains for the rest of his life. He fought to have the Great Smoky Mountains made a national park, so the country would not lose them. There is a mountain in Tennessee named after him now. And in 1931, the man who had survived alone in the wilderness for almost 30 years was killed in a car accident on a mountain road. The wilderness never took him. The road did. His book is still in print. Most of what is inside it is no longer taught anywhere. These were not hobbies. They were the difference between coming home and not. If you want more of what America used to know, subscribe. We are digging it back out, one skill at a time.